In the context of how emotions fit into the corporate workplace and how they affect businesses and relationships, I have so many stories. I worked 10 years as an engineer in a corporate setting for a publicly traded company. And this is one of my favorite stories of demonstrating that. It was a meeting between myself and one of my teammates who is not an engineer, but they worked in land. And, we had a land meeting. It was about landowners or mineral rights or something like that. And so this landman, myself, and two of his support staff were in a small conference room, and it had to do with regulatory approvals and things like that. And I, as the engineer in charge, still being a junior, by the way, kind of first, maybe second time doing this whole thing, following his guidance, leaning on his support staff as well. I walked into that meeting, and what was like a pending approval or a tentative approval was treated like a missed deadline. So I got yelled at because I missed. It was as though I missed a hard deadline, but it was like a pending or a tentative deadline. And I got chewed out by the landman in front of these two female support staff members. And, you know, as far as the reporting chain goes, he was generally senior to them. And I was not in the reporting chain with any of them. And so there wasn't like a boss, whatever relationship, but he was clearly more experienced than I was. So when he ripped into me and he yelled and swore, by the way, told me that I effing effed up, there wasn't really much for me to say until I realized the next day when I was looking at it again, or maybe it was later that afternoon, and I looked at it and I said, well, wait, I didn't actually miss a deadline. Like, I didn't actually mess anything up. Why is it that I got yelled at? And that's how it proceeded. Like, it proceeded like everybody knew I didn't actually miss a deadline. We didn't screw anything up. Like, no money was lost, whatever. But nobody said anything. Like, he didn't come apologize to me. They support staff, like the two girls in there, like they didn't come and acknowledge what happened or whatever. It was just kind of swept under the rug. And I didn't care. Like, I didn't need to bring it up. I didn't require an apology. I still thought that I had messed something up and I could have done a better job. Like, I was still being really hard on myself. It's only now, like years later, when I look back at it and kind of think to myself, like, oh, that was kind of like a messed up situation, like that was my lack of self-respect on display. I think that's what it was. Partially. I think there were a lot of things happening at the time. But being the self-respecting person that I am today, I would not let that slide entirely. Maybe in the meeting with like confusion and stress, maybe I'm not going to say anything before I absolutely clarify what has actually gone on. But after the fact, if I realize that you're the one who made a mistake or you misread a situation and you swore at me and you talked down to me as though I did something wrong in front of other people, by the way, and took your what appeared to be a bad day out on me, I'm not just going to let that slide anymore. And that comes from years of growing into this version of me and learning all kinds of lessons. But I don't think that that's a common thing. Like, I don't think it's common for people to acknowledge those types of faults, especially from senior leadership. I don't think it's common for that junior person to invest time and energy into themselves, in a way that without a title promotion or structural change in the business, they would return to that situation and even politely ask, let alone demand, that it be addressed. directly with that person or with everybody in the room. And to me, that's just a person to person thing. That's just human interaction. That's respect, you know? I think that's a lack of respect for others. And obviously it's going to impact businesses differently, and relationships are always unique, and team structures are totally different, situations are going to be different. But does that senior person who did screw up and realize that they did after the fact, do they take the initiative or not? I think it says a lot about the company culture, of course, and the company culture could impact how that's treated, of course. I'm not trying to make any generic statements here, but those types of things happen a lot. And I've heard stories about them happening in other places, especially from like very high level leadership. I'm talking like the VP, executive, CEO type level. If you're in corporate or you've had corporate experiences and you know you've been frustrated with management or senior leadership for this type of reason, I don't need to explain this to you. You already know what I'm talking about. It does happen. And I believe people just produce better, higher, better quality. They produce more output when they're happy, when there's support, when there's positivity in the environment. And I think that this type of respect, without it being demanded from them, but the presence of that type of respect in a workplace can really impact a business, and it can really impact in a positive way. And yeah, everything from revenue generation to just general culture. I just wanted to share that story. So that's my story for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening along.